everyone. Welcome to our panel about microschools for the Homeschooling Global Summit 2020. Hopefully it's been a great summit for all of you. My name is Kelly Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Prenda. We do a network of microschools, mostly in Arizona, but starting now to have presence in other places. And I'm really excited about this panel. We're going to go around in just a second, so you'll get to meet everybody and hear who they are and what they're working on. But everyone here has experience building up microschools. If you're not familiar with microschools, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but the idea is, as it sounds, a smaller group of students, and often that creates new possibilities for education. So excited to get into that. Let's go ahead and start with Juan Ma from Guatemala. Why don't you explain who you are, Juan Ma, and just tell a little bit about the Acton in Guatemala City.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. I'm Juan Ma Bonifaci. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been 20 years at the entrepreneurial game and founded several companies in different industries. But it wasn't until I founded the Acton Academy in Guatemala with my wife, my co-founder, that I've found a business that is actually the perfect business in the sense that the value created in human capital is just amazing, and there's nothing that gives more meaning to my life than having and the legacy that I'm building with the Acton Academy in Guatemala. Acton Academy is a microschool, and it started in Austin, Texas. My dear friend and founder Jeff Sandifer, with his wife Laura. They started the Acton Academy in Austin because they wanted something better for their kids, and I had to see it when they told me about it. And I brought my kids to Austin, and after them spending a little bit of time at Acton Academy Austin, we had the choice of either moving to Austin or starting the Acton Academy in Guatemala. And we brought it here and started about a year and a half, 2 years after the Sandifer started in Austin, and it's been a great ride. It's been one of the most awesome things I've done for myself and my family and the community that we now have, which is 75 students strong at this moment.
75 students, and what ages, Juan Ma?
From 5 to 17.
The whole gamut. That's beautiful. Well, we'll talk a little bit more, and excited to learn more about your microschool. Temp Keller, why don't you talk a little bit about you and your efforts in this space?
Sure. Just honored to be here, and I'm the founder and president of Templeton Academy, and really working towards this vision of a world of purpose-centered lifelong learners, prepared to thrive in college, career, and in life. I'm a former 5th grade teacher who spent 10 years building a national nonprofit to try and retain really good, effective teachers who were relatively early in their careers in the schools that they were needed most. And I began wrestling then with a big question that I'm sure many people who are watching this have wrestled with, this big question of kind of what really should schooling look like in the 21st century, right? And more specifically, what could it look like for our family? What could it look like for my student? And kind of wrestling with that big question came a business plan that simply was entitled Quality Affordable Private School. And we can talk more about this, but when 3 of my mentors sent it, out to a number of advisors and mentors, 3 of them actually said, you need to get down to Austin, Texas and meet Jeff and Laura Sandifer, who had just, started the Acton Academy. And like Juan Ma, saw what they were doing, was blown away, and was honored when there was an opportunity to essentially do an entrepreneur in residence year with them, which included a trip down to Guatemala to meet Juan Ma and his wife. And most importantly, their students. So so much of that learning with these fellow travelers became Templeton Academy. And just quickly, we're a family of small independent schools currently with locations in Washington, D.C. and Nashville. It's a middle school and high school model currently. The idea is trying to revolutionize access to real student agency. So we accomplish this through a unique block schedule that provides deeper learning for kids, project-based, experiential, that we like to use the city as a classroom as opposed to build huge buildings that take a ton of cost to build, much less maintain. And why keep kids inside when all the learning is out there? And again, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with many of the people watching this. And we're anchored by, I believe in my heart that schools are only as effective as the educators in them. However, we are not, like I know my fellow travelers here, about stage on the stage. We're more about, the idea of all learners and guides on the side. I actually, our logo here, if everybody can see this, kind of the Questlamation mark, is what we're all about. We believe in our heart that just wrestling with good, big questions is much more important than reciting the correct answer. And it's about the question that leads to that aha exclamation, but of course, another question and another aha, and round it goes. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Temp. Yeah, we're going to get into some of this, and I'm excited to have the conversation because I think there's probably people like you're talking about that might feel surprised. These feel like schools. There's buildings and educators, and you're hearing some of this language. But then they're also going to see the heart of what I think, like you're suggesting, a lot of people that are tuning into the Homeschooling Global Summit are thinking along these same lines, and it's hopefully empowering for them to realize that there's people who have institutions in place and similar goals and hearts. Michaela's one of these people. Michaela and I met through 4.0 Schools, which is a group that, Michaela, you were my mentor, if I remember correctly, Michaela. So why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the Life School?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly, for bringing us all together. So my name is Michaela Streeter, and I'm the founding principal of the Life School. And the Life School is an accredited nonprofit high school right in downtown Atlanta. So we actually just finished our 4th year and had our very first graduating class of seniors. So it's very exciting trying to navigate a graduation in the pandemic, but we were able to figure out a way to celebrate our seniors and see them in their caps and gowns and stuff. It's really nice. So our school focuses on transforming the high school experience. And as all of us here know, that a lot of things haven't really changed and throughout the K-12 experience in a long time. But I think in some ways we see more innovation for the younger students. But the high school age has been a really static experience. People often feel a lot of pressure and getting ready for college and getting ready for what's next. But our focus is on that, really transforming that experience and showing students that they can have this experience that's focused on the real world, that's personalized, that's exploration focused, that's hands-on and experiential, and then still be able to have all the options for college and for their career after they graduate from high school. So like I mentioned, we're in downtown Atlanta, and we serve 40 students in 9th through 12th grade. And our goal over the next few years is to grow to about 100 or so students, that magical Dunbar number, somewhere around there. So that's our focus. I'm excited to connect with you guys all here today.
It's wonderful. So hopefully you guys can see as you're listening, you've got multiple examples of micro schools or smaller than what you might picture for a traditional education establishment. There's a lot of divergence between, I think, what people think of as traditional education and what you're hearing here, which hopefully really fits right in to the Homeschooling Summit and the audience here. And I love that we spread across the ages. So Michaela's strictly focused on high schoolers, Juan Ma through all ages. Temp, you're looking at middle school and high school, and Prenda's, K through 8. So we kind of have that slant towards the younger students. I think there's room for lots of innovation. Well, I want to talk a little bit, and Michaela, maybe we start with you on this one, about the about parents. If you can kind of just give us a picture of, you have all these parents out there, many watching right now, probably several, and I'm sorry to those of you who don't live in Atlanta, because you're going to hear a lot more about the Life School and say, I want my kids to go there. But if you can kind of just give a picture of your parents, what are they looking for? What really drew them to you in the first place? I think it's worth kind of investigating that.
Yeah, I think that many parents are really kind of done with this mass comprehensive high school experience. They really want their students to feel known and to feel heard and to be able to have that direct access and connection to their classmates and to their teachers. And so many of our families either are making that decision for the first time when they come to high school. Maybe they've gone to larger public schools when kids were younger, or there's a continuation of that kind of focus and commitment to more personalized education for their family. So they homeschool when the kids were younger, they maybe did Montessori or like a smaller charter school or something. And so this is more of a continuation of that.
Yeah.
We have students that really want something different for their high school experience.
Absolutely. Other thoughts on that, Temp? What do you guys see?
Yeah, I think that I think what we see parents looking for primarily is they're in many cases just looking for their kid to be motivated to love learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think honestly, this isn't perhaps the best way to think of it, but we find them both in kind of proactive mode, and then we find some that are reactive, right? That irony and that tragedy that for so many kids, the longer we educate them, the less they seem to love learning, right? So we tend to see more entrepreneurial families that want to kind of get out ahead of that and make sure that kids continue to have that genuine motivation to love learning. Or we see kids that, families that are saying, gosh, what's going on here? They used to love learning and now they're not.
Fire's going out.
Yeah.
What percentage of Templeton kids come from kind of a homeschool-ish background as opposed to a kind of traditional?
I was looking at that prior to this. We're about 10% currently.
10%, which way?
10% coming from homeschooling backgrounds.
Okay. So a lot of them are inside of traditional. It's an interesting read actually on what you're talking about. Is are they being kind of proactive, looking ahead versus reactive? And it makes sense actually that a lot of parents would be motivated to start researching when maybe something's not working for their kid.
I think that's right. And quite frankly, then we also see that with those homeschooling families in particular, often they kind of get into homeschooling and then they get to a point where they're starting to feel perhaps, or whether they're part of a co-op and there's a lot of different, kind of interest and expertise within that group. But then they're starting to look more for that community of learners for their child to be a part of. And that's when kind of the transition tends to make sense for them.
It's interesting because our Prenda Microschools meet in homes, so it feels maybe a little closer, one step closer to homeschool. Last year, I was part of this event, and in my interview, I may have said this, but I would have said roughly 1/3 of our students were coming from traditional, and it was kind of 2/3 homeschool or homeschool-like. There was maybe some co-ops or different things going on. That's flipped. So this year, we still have a strong kind of homeschool contingent that's finding their way in, but there's a lot more parents looking from outside or from inside, I guess, from the traditional settings. Juan Ma, I'd love to hear kind of what you're seeing in Guatemala City, and I don't know the system there as well, so you can kind of paint a picture for us of like what parents' options are and what do you see them looking for when they come to you?
Sure. Well, the options here are much limited. Disruption is way behind the States, and so Acton Academy really stands out as probably the only option in our kind, I would say. And I would say that's probably true of most of Latin America. Parents come to us understanding that their child is a genius and that they just want them to become that, to enable them to be themselves, to develop a strong internal authority, and to have to have a voice, to just nurture it, and to they want to see the energy of a life well lived, of they happiness and the true success of their child. That they're very inspired, and sometimes running away from as well, you know, the traditional schooling that has, you know, put that light a little bit off on their child. But mostly we like to recruit families that are searching for this option, and that they recognize that their children are truly geniuses.
Super interesting. And I can imagine there's parents watching this right now high-fiving each other because they're like, our kid's a genius. Like somebody finally sees it, you know, and it must feel really great for your families. Now, I imagine there's also some education. I'd love to talk just briefly about that. For you guys in Guatemala, probably more so, where people have only seen it one way. But I'm sure for all of us, there's kind of a journey where we're helping parents on to think about things differently maybe than they're used to.
Absolutely. We see ourselves actually as a community, more than a school and the traditional idea of, you know, an institution that where you go and drop off your children. We see ourselves as a community, and the main stakeholders are our parents, children, and, you know, the internal staff of Acton Academy. So in that sense, we really need to uphold the mission and the beliefs of the Acton Academy are what's in the center of it. So principles in the center, and we all as stakeholders uphold it. Is not just the guides who are going to uphold this, or just the kids, or the parents have no responsibility. Actually, everyone recognizes their own responsibility, and we uphold each other to be able to meet that responsibility. And that's a really wonderful thing.
I'd love to hear other perspectives. I mean, I can imagine parents watching this who are already thinking about homeschooling, which is basically doing the whole thing by themselves, right? And hopefully with the community. But this has to feel appealing now, this idea of what if I could find a community, you know, to help me with this? Like we work together on it. Has that been an issue for anybody? Is just kind of helping parents see that and get it? And what would you say to somebody like the audience here who are already getting it, you know, that see the principles and they're ready to do the work. In fact, they're ready to do probably more work than what you guys are going to ask them to do as parents at your school. What would you say? Sort of opening this one up. So it looks like Temp.
Yeah, I'll jump in there because, again, I mean, part of the reason I'm so excited to be here, again, only roughly 10% of our families are coming from homeschooling. And again, back to that initial business plan, I thought that, you know, the original prediction was it would be closer to a quarter, if not a third.
Yeah.
But I will just quickly say, I think Juan Ma, you know, nailed it. I mean, it's that this is, you know, it is a learning community. Right. And I love that Michaela brought it to Dunbar's number, right? This idea that one of my business school professors always joked, and I think rightfully so. Remember, you can get data to tell you whatever you want it to tell you, right? But truly, it's worth checking out Dunbar's number for folks if they're not familiar with it. And just this idea that you know, that there's, you know, a community of 150 or less. You know, there's just a magic, not only when just everybody kind of knows everybody, not that you all have to be best buddies, but you know who everybody is and how they connect and relate to that bigger community. Being part of something like that where you truly can feel known, because yeah, it's a pretty crazy undertaking to think, all right, we're gonna take this on and yeah. So
you're like the coyote that runs over the edge and then looks down, and you're over.
Right, yeah.
Michaela, talk about your kind of parent community and education. I'd love for people to understand better.
Yeah, I think this is a really good conversation to have with parents that are primarily homeschooling their students. So when a homeschool parent is thinking about joining a micro school, to me, there are a couple of things to think about. So one, you have now, like everyone's saying, this community of people to come around your student and support them, both the other students as well as the parents. And we definitely see a lot of synergy there that allows the parents and the students to benefit. So the parents are networking and finding all these like-minded people that they didn't even know were in their city. It's like, oh my gosh, you love this too, or what do you do with blah, blah, blah. You think about parenting differently and all of these things as well. And so there's this like encouragement and motivation among the parents that, you know, there are other people. Because sometimes when parents choose to homeschool their students, they deal with grandma or auntie questioning their decision. Like, are they really learning? You know, what exactly do they do in their day? But now you have all these other parents who get it. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And all these other parents who want to pour into your child and say, oh, your student's interested in photography. My friend works for National Geographic. Let me connect them, you know, or my cousin does XYZ, or I know so-and-so. And there's this collaboration that happens around the students, and as well as among the students themselves, that you have all of these students who are raised also in families that believe in exploration, that believe in a lot of similar things. And so their minds are free and open, just like your child's, to be able to explore. And that's really just a beautiful thing to see for students. But then at the same time, going from a homeschool parent where your child's education is your full responsibility to now is the micro schools, sometimes parents struggle with that transition because now these other people are making these decisions about the teachers and the facilitators around, you know, what kinds of things are they learning? What does their day look like? And some homeschool parents are ready to let it go. Like, man, I've been doing this for 10 years. You got it from here, you know, at least for that like academic piece. And then some homeschool parents are not necessarily ready. So that's a conversation that we have also with our parents coming from homeschool. We have a handful of them to say, you know, are you ready to pull back and say, you know, give yourself a little bit more independence, and give our teachers who have, you know, this experience with a larger group of students and more of a range of students that we've worked with to have some more input and partner with you. You know, we're not going to take them from you fully, but it's a partnership. But the dynamic or the ownership piece of it that you have on the academics is shifting. And are you ready for that?
It's so interesting you bring this up, Michaela. So, someone is about to talk, but I just wanted to throw out like this tension between the individual and the collective. And there's trades, like we see it in our model where we have groups of 10, and every day there's a collaborate activity, a structured group activity where the kids are working together. Well, we rotate through. So it's like one day I get to decide, and I love dinosaurs, and I found this like science project that's dinosaur driven, and you know, to me, I'm 4th grade, so everybody has to learn about dinosaurs today. And it feels so cool because I got to make that choice. But in return for that, the trade-off is tomorrow, someone might choose like the history of Russian ballet, and I have to go learn what they want to learn. And so there's this, I think it's so healthy, but it also feels there can be friction there. We've definitely felt it too. Someone, who was about to say something?
Yeah. I was just prompted to think about, you know, what is homeschooling, and I was thinking about homeschooling. Sounds to me like more of a place where learning takes place. So at home, but within homeschooling, different parents choose different systems and different learning activities and different learning systems. So I think, you know, we should talk about types of systems of learning because homeschooling is really just a place where it takes.
Right. Is it at home? I mean, technically,
it's
Prenda's at home, so you could say we're homeschooling, but it's actually
exactly.
Yeah, maybe different.
So it's difficult to separate, you know, what is homeschool if you're not talking about a specific type of learning process within the homeschooling community, right?
It's more about kind of commitment to principles, like what are we really trying to do, and what's the shared vision philosophy here for what we're accomplishing.
And going back to your idea of this, you know, give or take with individualization of learning. At Acton Academy, we are very you know, we individualize and we enable the genius of everyone to, and the process enables that flexibility. So that you have a community that supports each other, and there's a lot of systems that basically make you accountable and enable you to build character and learn to be together. And it enhances your individualization. So it's you're never going to water down what you want, what you need. it's very self-directed, and the community just adds to your own individual journey. We use the hero's journey as the process of learning within Acton Academy, and so the community is that support, and I would say that it mostly enhances rather than takes away. You know?
Can you guys see any examples of places, of ways in which it does that? I'd love to kind of share some stories. And I was going to jump immediately to negative stories. We had some of our early people in Prenda that had homeschooled before, and they ended up trying out Prenda but not sticking with it. The reason was the hours, right? So we actually let each group choose their own hours and set their own schedule. So we try to be as flexible as we can, but there's still this agreement, right? Like, I'm part of a group. We're going to be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. And there were some people who were used to kind of being able to navigate their own individual schedule every day. That ended up being enough of a friction point that it didn't work. So there's an example of maybe where like that tension between collective and individual didn't function as well. I'd love to hear places where you guys have seen it work though. And Juan Ma's getting at that with his comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had some families that, you know, were homeschooling for some of the reasons that we've discussed, that they just wanted to take a step away from the traditional system. And, you know, mom was happy to do it for those few years, but like if there was someone else that wanted to take that on and be in line with, you know, their educational values, she was ready. So we've had some families that were, you know, excited to finally find something, a community that worked for them to step in.
Yeah, and just a quick anecdote from me. I've got a board member who, when we first met, and he was one of the people that original quality affordable private school business plan ended up in his hands. He calls me up and he says, okay, so you're the latest crazy K-12 entrepreneur trying to build a Flintstone vitamin. I said, okay, I'll bite. You know, what on earth do you mean? He said, well, think about it. You know, the problem with K-12 is that you've got kids and you've got parents, and they often don't want the same thing, right? And if we break down what the parents really want, there's the intrinsic and there's the extrinsic. Intrinsically, parents just want their kids to be, and I, as a father of three, you just want your kids to be happy and healthy and productive, right? But extrinsically, we're human, and parents tend to want, you know, bragging rights, right? My kid takes their vitamins. Does your kid? Right? You know, kind of help me feel good about myself and the job that I'm doing, right? And you know, but of course, and forgive me, but I mean, you know, the nutritional value of the Flintstone vitamin as an aside, you know, is to how healthy they are. But, you know, for the kid, it's delicious, right? Give me another one, you know, that was good. I'll have that. And so, you know, the success stories for us are when we find those families that are just looking for deliciousness, right? And it's not different. It's not like the parents, you know, have one job to be done and the kid has another. It's just, you know, look, you know, we're looking for deliciousness for this individual, and then done right, you get this collective that is just saying, yeah, this is what it really is all about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I totally remember taking those vitamins. And Temp, if I remember correctly, I think there's a blog post about this, so maybe we can get the link for it.
Absolutely. I think it was a blog post I wrote
for
about
anyone interested in
5 years ago.
digging in deeper.
Yeah.
What other stories? I mean, let's talk kind of more broadly about and maybe focus on homeschoolers coming in or not. Maybe there's probably also a lot of people watching this that are part of the summit that are thinking about homeschooling. In a lot of ways, people ask me who's the ideal Prenda family, and I've started saying it's people who lay awake at night talking about their kid and wanting something, Googling things about homeschooling, but haven't yet made the leap because there's some things that they're afraid of with homeschool. I think that's to Michaela's point. You know, it takes a lot of work to do it. There's questions around, will my kids learn the things that they like? I think some of these Flintstone vitamin fears, right? Will they get the academics that they need? Will they be able to jump back into an assembly line somewhere and, you know, get a degree and a job and whatever there's a lot of things swirling around in the minds of families. So yeah, I would love to just kind of, to the extent that we've seen those people and they've been part of our communities, would love to hear, what that looks like on the parent end, but then obviously talking about students too, if that works.
For us, the families that most enjoy and I would say our perfect customer is one that respects self-direction. So it's very important that they not only see their kid as a genius, but that they let their children take the decisions of wherever they want to take their own journey, and that makes it a little bit tougher. And sometimes some of the people that homeschool actually want to increase control over, and so that wouldn't be a good customer for us, because but there are then most parents within the homeschooling community, I think, that just see their kid as a genius and really want to give agency and ownership and responsibility to the person, and those are the kind of people that we want to join forces with.
Give me an example, Juan Ma, of a kid that showed up. I mean, I don't know if you have any off the top of your head, but somebody who showed up, maybe the parents might feel a little trepidation about that, or that feels a little scary. And I don't know if you've seen this, where the child kind of starts out, it's like, here you go, you get to control this. I've heard Jeff Sandifer talk about stories like this. And over time, it actually pays off. But at the beginning, it might seem a little scary, just like anybody who's helped a teenager learn how to drive, right? There's a scary moment right at the beginning where it's like we're giving them quite a lot of control and autonomy. But as we go, it pays off beautifully.
Yes, it's scary. It's scary, and but it's so rewarding. I had the story of my own oldest, Isabella, who is now 21 and is out and about, outside of Acton and doing her own journey. But we were like 3 months into Acton Academy, and I was a little bit scared of. We had taken the plunge, but she came to me and said, "Dad, thank you so much." And I said, why? She had been an A straight student, and she was, teacher's pet and all of that. And she told me, "Thank you, because for the first time in my life, I am thinking for myself." And that to me was a big revelation.
Powerful.
And I said, we did the right thing.
So good. Temp and Michaela, any stories you guys like to share?
Yes, story time is always the best. So actually one of our very first students who just graduated this year. So when he first came to our school, I think the first week, his dad called and asked, why is his book bag so light? Like, where are his textbooks? Where are all his papers? And I was like, we don't have all that. We have the internet, we have the city, we have other resources. There are no textbooks coming home. And he's like, I don't know about this school. And so, but they continue with this obviously for 4 years, but it's just been really interesting in that time to see how his interests have grown and progressed. And I think it's one of the things, like, when you transition from just a different system to a school, like a smaller school community, you have access to all these different resources, as well as just like the synergy of the community. And so when he came, he was just ginger. He liked playing video games. He wanted to make them, like a lot of kids. And so we kind of got him started with coding and started with Scratch, as a freshman. And he hadn't done any coding before. He just kind of knew that was what he wanted to do. And so that's really what we try to move students away from, of like having heard of something and thinking that's what you want to do based on what you've heard someone else do or what you think is the next step, and actually being able to really experience it and try it for yourself so that you can make these informed decisions, especially in this high school period where you really are thinking about, who am I and how am I going to contribute to the world? And so he tried coding and didn't like it at all. He was like, too many details. I'm not interested in any of this. And he really liked the story. He really liked making the music behind it. And so he went on and created an album with some classmates and got into the studio. And there's a youth studio here in Atlanta, and just loved that experience. But then he enjoyed it, but then didn't like, the details, the nitty gritty of making the song. He liked collaborating with his classmates, brainstorming ideas. So he liked the business and the entertainment and just like that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So, but over time, he tried coding again and found that as he grew older, that he liked it and like trying to make different things, robots maybe more than Scratch, and some other things that he tried. And then eventually he was able to intern with the esports company and went on and kind of combined the gaming with the entertainment piece that he likes and the business side of it, and like hosting tournaments. He liked refereeing. He liked putting the events together. And so now, then this year, he was able to get into his dream college and go there to study computer science and business and put it all together as he prepares for a career. And a lot of our design of our school, at least some piece of it, I was really inspired by. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Blake Bowles and his book around college without high school. And it's like, how do you craft this life, this experience while you're in high school that's really driven by your interests and your goals, but then be able to tie it back to the traditional sort of academics that if you decide to apply to college that those schools are looking for. So you're doing this internship or you're creating this game, but really it's this is a computer science class or this is a English class or something. How do you connect it back to the types of things that they're looking for? And what's cool is now colleges are starting to see more of the value and not just having like a bunch of clubs, but how do how are students really demonstrating passion? And that's something that in the micro school homeschool community we can really double down on for our students. They have lots of time and energy to explore their passions and to discover them, much more than in a typical traditional experience.
Right. And so much flexibility compared to, I just spent 13 years of K-12 plus 4 years of college, and now I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and I desperately need a job. Oh, and now learn all that stuff and figure out what you like. I mean, your story is perfect because it captures just exactly that bumpy process of figuring out who you are, what you love, what you care about. And to do that, why not start now? Why wait? I love having, I could share some similar stories from even younger kids, but Temp, I'd love to hear any from you, any stories that you'd like to share.
Yeah, no, and not surprisingly, a lot of the Venn diagram here is pretty, there's a lot of overlap, and I love it. But yeah, and also because again, in my case, remember again, I had that incredible year at the first Acton Academy here in Austin, Texas, and that entrepreneur in residence role. One of the many things that we connected on was, as Juan Ma said a moment ago, and now Michaela is talking about so thoughtfully, is this idea of kind of learning to be, right? This and I'm sure, I know that this isn't our charge today, and there's probably another panel talking about the difference between homeschooling and unschooling. But Clark Aldrich's book, Unschooling Rules, I think is a mandatory read if folks haven't. And of course, he begins with that first rule of this three-part taxonomy of learning, that there's learning to be, learning to do, and learning to know. And arguably, most traditional schools focus the resounding majority of their time and energy on that learning to know, right? And of course, this in an age when we all have these in our pockets, computers where the learning to know is less valuable. It's so much about done right, that learning to be. Which we break down to, again, in shorthand, what motivates you to love learning, right? But again, another three-part Venn. It's what are you good at, what are you passionate about, and what does the world need, right? And again, a lot of this I've begged, borrowed, stolen from Acton and others, but we love to put it in the form of a sentence, right? And not surprisingly, the form of a question, right? What are your gifts, and how can you use them in a way that brings you joy and serves others, right? And so our stories always come back to that. It's a kid, and I'll pick one, Lizzie in Nashville, who just came in and understandably, intimidated by the size of that question. But then you see how she just, wrestles with it. And we talk a lot about reflect, assess, act, right? Reflect being a lot of that looking inward. Learning to be, assess being that look around you, what are the resources, kind of books, online, people, places that where you can get that learning to know, and then act, learn to do, try these things. You see Lizzie, kind of come out of the shell and kind of be a real leader. And again, we have this block schedule. So we've got an exhibition after every 10-week term. And here she's designed an entire wardrobe for this French class that she's done a deep dive on, and is thinking about how she can, now launch her own line. I mean, and of course, back to embracing the anecdotal. I mean, it's then the note from the parents that came to me. Thank you, Kaylee, our wonderful head of school there. Thank you so much for what you've done for our daughter. I'm sure we're not alone in this, but even if we were, to have changed one life as beautifully, positively, and profoundly as you have Lizzie's and ours is a gift beyond words, right? And that's a testament to Lizzie, the learner, right? That self-direction that is scary and was scary for her parents.
Yeah.
But man, she's taken it and run with it.
Beautiful. We're out of time. This has been a fascinating conversation. I'd love to wrap up with one sentence of advice for somebody who's maybe thinking about homeschooling. So we didn't get to talk much about COVID. The world has changed. Education is different. A lot of parents are asking questions that maybe they wouldn't have been asking right now. And I get to meet a lot of these people. I'm sure you guys do too. If you had to give them, just in closing here, one sentence of advice for each, or for those parents who are thinking about it, or maybe doing something more traditional, but asking and wondering, obviously willing to watch a panel like this and thinking about what a microschool or homeschool might mean for them, what would you say to those people? We'll start with Juan Ma.
Sure, and I'll use the Laura Sandifer's title of her latest book. Just have the courage to grow. Have the courage to take the plunge, because the rewards are immense.
Beautiful. Michaela.
Sure. Yeah, I want to focus this on the families of color that are in attendance at the event. I think that sometimes we see this world of unschooling and microschools as a white people thing. And I want everybody that's out there to feel encouraged that this is something that is a wonderful fit for families of color as well. And that, our commitment is to raising our children to be free, and that this is a wonderful space to do that you're welcome here.
Powerful. Thank you. And Temp?
I'll be a touch redundant. I would say to families listening and thinking about this, reflect, assess, act. Do it.
So awesome. Thank you guys. This has been a fascinating conversation, and good luck to everybody out there. We appreciate you guys for watching.